So, ladies, we are live.
Greetings.
Take a second. We'll take a second and let people come on. So you should be able to see up there too at the top that it tells folks. Hey, family. There's one person. I hear something. I hear some feedback. Did y'all hear that feedback?
Was it a clock?
That right there.
It seems like a beep when people come in, but I can mute when I'm not talking, if that will help.
It was like a dun.
Yeah, that's the chimes. I'm in Brooklyn, and they're chiming. The bells, I assume. They'll stop soon.
Oh, that's beautiful. So it's 6 chimes, I guess.
I don't know. I never can.
Oh. Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade. If you are here for continuing education, welcome, welcome. If you are not and you just want to hear the conversation, I want to welcome you also. If you are here for continuing education, I'm going to say a couple of things. Hey, Sister Tamara, I saw that you checked in. We have not started. Molly, hey, I see Molly checked in. So for my folks that are receiving continuing education, let me do a couple of housekeeping things, and then I'm going to just talk to folks in general, and then we're going to start the conversation. If you are receiving continuing education, just do a check-in really quick and just say hi in the chat. That'll be our way of taking attendance so that we know that you are here. Also, just remember, like any continuing education course, you have to remain for the entire time. So you have to stay here from the beginning to the end. And at the very end, I am going to I will put in the chat, I will open up our assessment. You'll be able to do that assessment. You will have 30 minutes after this conversation is ended in order to be able to do that assessment. So make sure that you do that right away. Once you do the assessment and it closes, then you will receive your continuing education certificate. If you are on the call if you're on this live stream and you're interested in continuing education for mental health professionals and you have not already signed up, you can still sign up. I am going to give you the website where you can go ahead and sign up right now. I'm putting it in the chat, so feel free to do that. You must sign up in order to receive continuing education credits. Also, you want to pay attention just throughout our talk, because what we're going to ask you to do is throughout this talk, ask questions, interact, participate in the chat. We ask you to do that at least 3 times if you're receiving continuing education. The final thing that I want to remind you of, or just tell you about, in terms of this particular broadcast, myself, Osundele Onifade, and Zawadi Powell, none of us have been paid to do this. We don't have any conflicts of interest. This is just something that we are doing from our hearts to be able to have this conversation. So that's the continuing education stuff. I want to make sure that I have everything I think that I do. The other piece is, if you're not receiving continuing education, thank you for showing up and participating in this conversation on a Saturday night. I know you could be someplace else. I honor you for the fact that you showed up to this conversation. What I do want to say is we are going to have this conversation about psychosis and spiritual experiences and whether or not there are crosses between those two things, or are they distinct. And throughout this conversation, it is not my intention, although I am a psychologist, it is not my intention to give you any kind of medical advice. Neither is it the intention of Osundele or Zawadi to give you any type of medical advice. We are not telling you to stop taking your medication or stop going to anybody that you are seeing for mental health treatment. That is not what this is for. This is just strictly for you to have some information and hear a different side. So sometimes, and I was telling them before we went on, I can be a little hesitant about doing these things because sometimes people hear stuff or they read stuff into this as this means a sign that you don't need mental health treatment. And we are not saying that at all. So as Osundele is like, no. We are not saying that. So don't think that at all. That being said, I want to jump in. I'm going to have my sister friends introduce themselves. So again, I'm Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade. I am a licensed psychologist. I'm the executive director at A Healing Paradigm. I am going to ask Osundele to introduce herself. I want you to tell us a little bit about the spiritual work that you do. And then I want you to start by answering the question whether or not you believe that there is a such thing as organic mental illness. And when I say organic mental illness, I'm talking about illnesses that like schizophrenia or delusional disorder or bipolar disorder. For you, are those illnesses real?
All right, greetings, everyone. Greetings, greetings, greetings. I am Osundele Onifade. I'm hearing a little echo. Can you hear me clearly?
Let me put myself on mute. I'm not hearing it.
Okay. I am Osundele Onifade. I am a priestess in the West African Orisha tradition. I am a curator and a creator of resources for people in the diaspora outside of Nigeria to kind of reconnect with their African traditional religion, particularly Ifa and Orisha traditions. I'm also a documentary photographer, and I work as a priestess. I see on and help them connect with the Orisha spirits. To answer your question, yes, absolutely. I do believe in organic mental illness. I have clients that have schizophrenia. I have clients that have experienced multiple personalities. I have clients that have really deep depression. I don't know what it's called, but it's not like the regular depression one where they last a long time and is very perfect. I have clients who have borderline personality disorders. I do believe that there is something called mental illness, and it is true, and it's something that people suffer from, and that they need some type of Western prescription or Western therapeutic intervention to deal with it. And then I also believe that people also have spiritual experiences that are different from those organic mental disorders.
Thank you. All right, Sister Zawadi, tell us who you are. We can't hear you because you got your mic on mute.
I tell you, this virtual world is so interesting.
Something else, isn't it?
Words, unmute your mic, turn your camera on. Hi, I'm Zawadi Powell, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I am a psychic medium. I do channeling work where I carry a spirit who does readings for people and gives them information about their lives, about their past lives, about what's going on with their spirituality, sometimes, family issues or, what their life path is, that type of a thing. So people come to me from all over the world, and I have a practice, and, we basically counsel people about spirituality and about, issues that are going on in their life. I'm also a business manager in the nonprofit realm. And so I do, that type of work on the side, community work. I've been doing this I've been a medium my entire life, but I was not aware of it. And so I think that I have experienced a bit of both, being spiritual as well as being mentally ill. I think that the two things can sometimes go hand in hand, where because your spiritual gifts were misunderstood and there was no context for them, and there was no real cultural umbrella to put you under, then you develop all of these side effects of having a gift, or side effects of experiencing phenomena that cannot be explained, which can then turn into a mental illness, can cause you to be depressed, can cause you to not know how to filter the voices that you're hearing, and then have an excess of voices, or have, disruptive voices, experience different sensations spiritually, and then begin to imagine that those sensations are coming for you and obsess over them, although they may not spiritually be being executed. So I'm very much interested in how the two things sort of bounce off of one another, and then how to separate them out so that you can deal with the holistic person, since we are, mental, physical, and spiritual. I believe that in trying to solve someone's issues, you have to address all three of those. And I feel like the psychosis that people are talking about may be the physical part, where in this physical realm, we're reacting to spiritual things in an abnormal way.
Okay, so this is a question for both of you. So when you said that, Zawadi, like, so, okay, and I know that I have asked the two of you over the years, that how do you make that distinction from the things that where you're saying that you may be hearing or seeing stuff that isn't really there, and it's from a spiritual perspective versus, no, this has to do with some kind of mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to speak on that, Osundele, or you want me to continue? I guess it's a hard question. So one thing that I have started to try to practice is what I call the 3-point check, right? And I try to say this often so that the spirits can hear me, and so that I remind myself that when I'm trying to find out whether someone is dealing with a spiritual issue or a mental illness, I'm looking for 3 clues. And so I believe that when people find me, they found me because their guides or their ancestors or whatever angels are protecting them sent them to me. And so then I'm making this agreement that please show me 3 clues to prove to me. This is my prayer, that you will show me 3 clues to prove to me that this is actually a spiritual phenomenon. And so, with myself, one of the things that my friend who's a therapist told me when I was questioning whether I was a schizophrenic and whether my hearing voices was actually a psychosis and not a spiritual gift was that it can't be a psychosis, Zawadi, because the things that you're saying are psychic and they're prophesized. You're saying these things and they're coming true. And so that was like one point, right? That there should be a spiritual phenomenon that happens that can't be explained. And so, just for someone to be hearing voices, it's not really safe to say, oh, you're so spiritual, definitely since you heard it, it must be. No, we need to look for the proof in this that, you were able to predict something and the thing actually happened in the physical realm. So then that would be evidence that, yes, you are having a spiritual experience. Another thing that I look for sometimes is that the person says that they're experiencing something and then I experience it as well. And so, for example, there was a client who was hearing voices that were threatening him. And as he was talking about hearing the voices that were threatening him, I felt something push me. And so then I said, that's another clue for me that this is a spiritual phenomenon, because no one can explain why he's ranting and raving about someone is threatening me, someone is talking, loudly right now. And then I also feel, a push. And so then the two of us have both experienced this phenomenon that can't be explained by mental illness. And so I try to look for like 3 of those, and I try to make an agreement with the spirit realm that please show me 3 of those so that I can then know, okay, this is something weird that's going on. There's a phenomenon here that can't necessarily be explained by mental illness.
I was talking, and then, so are you saying it's 3 physical phenomena that you would have, or?
It's almost like looking for signs,
okay, 3 signs
that will prove to me that this person does not just need, excessive or intensive counseling to stop, imagining these things, but that we have to remove something spiritually so that they're no longer being, haunted.
Okay. And remind me, I want to come back to that, the idea of like hearing negative voices and hearing haunting and stuff like that, because that always feels like a lot for me. But Osundele, go ahead, tell me.
Okay, so my experience is a little slightly different, and I don't know if it's a natural thing for me or if it's a part of my Obatala energy as a Obatala priestess, where Obatala's energy is about the consciousness, right? So when people are unbalanced in their consciousness, there's a particular way that imbalance comes to me spiritually. It just doesn't feel right. Like when people are talking about, I'm speaking to my grandmother, there's a feeling of rightness to it when they say it. And sometimes I will get a spirit to co-sign it, as Zawadi was saying earlier, like their grandmother might nudge me or speak to me, or, you know, I might get a sense of well-being, or a sense of warmth from whatever ancestral spirit that they're talking about. But when it's psychosis, the person just doesn't feel right to me. They feel imbalanced. They feel like they need help. That's the only way I can describe it. There's a really sense of unsettling that comes into my spirit and my consciousness when I'm around people with serious mental disorders. And I don't know how to articulate it other than that, just this feeling of discomfort, unease, and unbalance. It has not led me. So I might ask, have you seen a doctor? Are you taking medicine? And then they'll confirm like, oh, well, I stopped taking my medicine.
You need to go
Maybe
back.
you should. I want you to consider that you may need to go back and take your medicine, because you can feel it. You can feel the imbalance.